At 28, I'm in what many would call a stable relationship. I met my partner through mutual friends at a party, and we've been together for 3 years now. Everything seemed perfect, or so I thought. One day, while waiting for my coffee at a local cafe, I glanced up to see a familiar face, the 29-year-old male who used to be my partner's best friend. They had a fallout years ago, and he disappeared from our lives. The shock of seeing him was palpable, and curiosity got the better of me. We exchanged pleasantries, and before I knew it, we were sitting across from each other, sipping coffee and catching up on lost time. Our initial meeting was innocent, filled with laughter and shared stories. But soon, those casual catch-ups turned into more frequent encounters. We began meeting in secret, in hidden corners of the city, relishing the thrill of keeping our rendezvous hidden. My behavior started to shift. More text messages at odd hours, mysterious smiles to myself. I was living a double life, and the excitement was intoxicating. It wasn't long before an innocent dinner turned into something more intimate. We found ourselves alone in his apartment, the air thick with unspoken tension. One thing led to another, and suddenly we crossed a line I never intended to breach. The emotional and physical connection was undeniable, and yet I kept justifying it to myself, claiming it was just a fling, a harmless escape. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. Juggling 2 relationships was an art form I never thought I'd master. There were moments of sheer panic, a misplaced phone, a suspicious glance from my partner, an unexpected call while I was in the wrong place. Yet, somehow, I managed to keep everything under wraps, my partner oblivious to the web of deception I was spinning. The affair subtly seeped into my relationship with my partner. I noticed myself being more distant, my affection slightly forced. Guilt gnawed at me during quiet moments, but I rationalized it away, convincing myself it was all under control. Then came the unexpected twist. During one of our secret meetings, the 29-year-old male dropped a bombshell. He was considering reaching out to my partner to reconcile their friendship. The thought was a ticking time bomb in my mind. How would I navigate this new twist? The chaos of my secret affair was spiraling out of control, and consequences loomed large on the horizon. Now, here I am, reflecting on the mess I've created. The precarious situation has left me questioning everything. Should I come clean, risk losing everything, or continue this dangerous game? It's a tangled web I've woven, and I'm unsure how to untangle it. I'm reaching out to you, strangers of Reddit. What would you do in my shoes? Have you ever faced such a twisted situation? I'm a 25-year-old female, and I've somehow managed to entangle myself in a situation that feels more like a twisted soap opera than real life. My best friend, a 26-year-old female, and I have been inseparable for years. Her partner, a 27-year-old male, became part of our tight-knit group over time. We all hung out frequently, and gradually, the partner and I began spending more time together, often under the guise of planning surprises or events for my friend. It all started on a night that should have been ordinary. We were at a party, and somehow, both of us ended up alone on the balcony. The conversation flowed easily, and laughter turned into something more as we leaned in closer. A momentary lapse, I thought, as our lips met. But that single kiss unlocked something neither of us could ignore. What should have been a one-time mistake spiraled into an affair that I was powerless to resist, despite the overwhelming guilt that shadowed every encounter. Weeks turned into months, and the secret meetings continued. I kept telling myself it would end, that I had control, but the reality was, I was caught up in the thrill and danger of it all. Then came the night that changed everything. We had met up under the usual pretense, but his demeanor was different. He confessed his feelings for me, saying he wanted to leave my best friend. I was frozen, a mix of disbelief and fear coursing through me. The thought of losing my best friend over this was terrifying, but the partner was insistent, painting visions of a future that seemed both tantalizing and terrifying. The internal conflict was unbearable. Should I confess to my best friend, risking everything? The partner's persistence made it clear this was no longer a secret I could keep. My best friend began to notice my distracted demeanor, sensing something was amiss. It all came to a head during a casual night in. We were watching a movie when she suddenly turned to me, suspicion in her eyes, asking if there was something I needed to tell her. My heart raced, knowing the truth teetered on the edge of revelation. I tried to downplay, to maneuver around her questions, all while the partner was texting me, demanding I make a decision. The pressure from both sides was suffocating, and I found myself in a relentless tug-of-war between loyalty and desire. Each day felt like I was walking on a tightrope, with the stakes growing ever higher. As I sit here typing this out, I'm consumed by the realization of how deeply I've hurt the two people closest to me. The affair that once felt exhilarating now feels like a tangled web that's closing in. Do I come clean and risk losing the friendship that means the world to me? Or do I seize the chance at a new relationship, despite the destruction it would leave in its wake? I'm at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. The consequences of my actions loom large, and I'm reaching out to this community in the hopes of finding some semblance of clarity. Has anyone been in a similar situation? How do you navigate such a complicated, messed up scenario? Any advice would be deeply appreciated as I try to figure out what to do next.
I'm a 28-year-old male, and this story is probably one of the most messed up things I've ever done. My partner, a 27-year-old female, recently underwent surgery. She needed time to recover, and while I should have been there for her, I ended up doing something I never thought I would. Before the surgery, our relationship was going through a rough patch. We had been arguing a lot, mostly about small things that somehow seemed monumental. Her surgery was supposed to be a turning point, a chance for us to rally together and strengthen our bond. But instead of bringing us closer, the stress and responsibility pushed me further away. I felt overwhelmed, and my partner's pain and vulnerability only seemed to heighten my own sense of frustration. The person I cheated with is a 25-year-old woman I met at a work event. She was charming and confident, everything I felt I wasn't at the time. We clicked instantly, sharing laughs and stories over drinks. I found myself looking forward to seeing her more often. It started innocently, but soon I was spending more time with her, relishing the escape she provided from my tumultuous home life. The attraction was undeniable, and it grew stronger every time we met. It happened one evening, after a particularly long day at work. I told myself I was just going out for a drink, a way to clear my head before heading home. The bar was dimly lit, the music just loud enough to drown out any second thoughts. She was there, waiting, and I could feel the pull between us. We talked, we laughed, and somewhere between the second and third drink, we crossed a line. The act itself was a blur, a whirlwind of poor decisions made in a moment of weakness. We ended up in a secluded corner, hidden from the world, where nothing else mattered. There was a moment of hesitation, a flicker of my partner's face in my mind, but it was gone as quickly as it came. The temptation was too strong, and I gave in. The immediate aftermath was a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief from the tension that had been building inside me, and dread at the thought of what I had done. I drove home, the guilt creeping in with each passing mile. At home, my partner was asleep, the painkillers keeping her in a deep slumber. I watched her for a moment, feeling a pang of regret that I quickly buried. Over the next few days, I went through the motions. I helped her with meals, sat with her while she watched TV, all the while pretending everything was fine. But my actions betrayed me. I was more attentive, more helpful than usual, as if overcompensating for my betrayal. The incident has left a mark on our relationship. There's a distance between us that wasn't there before, a silent acknowledgement of something broken. I haven't told her what I did, and I don't know if I ever will. The guilt lingers, a constant reminder of my actions. Looking back, I can see how twisted the whole situation was, how I let my own frustrations and weaknesses lead me down a path I never should have taken. It's a mess of my own making, and I am left grappling with the consequences. Human behavior is complicated, and sometimes we find ourselves doing things that defy logic or reason. This was one of those times, and now I have to live with what I've done. I'm a 30-year-old guy working in a corporate office, and my life took an unexpected turn. I had an affair with my boss's 40-year-old spouse. The craziest part? I'm still invited to their family dinners, and no one acts like anything's happened. Here's how it all unfolded. It all started at a company gala. My boss introduced me to his spouse, a striking 40-year-old woman. We hit it off immediately, talking about everything from obscure films to rare books. She suggested we exchange numbers to continue our conversation, and I naively agreed. Our first meeting was under the guise of discussing a new book. One thing led to another, and soon we were entangled in a full-blown affair. The thrill of secrecy was intoxicating. We met in obscure cafes, exchanged texts under pseudonyms, and even had a hidden rendezvous during a business trip. The risk was high, but it added to the allure. As the months rolled by, our meetings became more frequent and daring. I remember the adrenaline rush of sneaking out during lunch breaks and the excitement of stolen moments. One evening, we almost got caught in a hotel lobby when a colleague of mine walked in unexpectedly. We ducked behind a potted plant, hearts racing, whispering nervously until the coast was clear. The true shock came when I accidentally discovered she was juggling multiple affairs. I stumbled upon a message on her phone from another lover, a 45-year-old man. It was a tangled web of secrets, each more outrageous than the last. I realized I was part of a bizarre tapestry of infidelity, yet I couldn't extricate myself from the situation. The inevitable happened when my boss, a 50-year-old man, found out about our affair. I was bracing for a confrontation or even getting fired. Instead, he called me into his office for a private meeting. To my surprise, he was surprisingly calm. He revealed they had an open marriage agreement, something they didn't flaunt publicly. He wasn't angry or vengeful, but rather intrigued by the choice his spouse made. His nonchalant attitude left me stunned, and I walked out of the meeting more confused than ever. What followed was even more surreal. Despite everything, I continued receiving invitations to their family dinners. The first dinner post-revelation was tense, to say the least. I was on edge, waiting for an outburst or an accusation, but none came. The interactions were awkward, yet polite, lighting, as if nothing had ever happened. It felt like I was living in an alternate reality, where everyone was aware, but chose to ignore the elephant in the room. As weeks turned into months, the bizarre normalcy continued. I was entangled in their family dynamics, feeling like an outsider in a twisted play. Reflecting on this bizarre chapter of my life, I feel trapped in a surreal, outrageous reality. The lines between right and wrong blur, leaving me questioning the true nature of relationships and secrets. How long can I keep living in this strange world before it all unravels?
This story is as twisted as it sounds, and even now, I can't believe it happened. I'm a 29-year-old female, and my partner, a 31-year-old male, had his birthday coming up. I decided to throw him a surprise party, something he'd never expect. The preparations were extensive. I had rented a cozy place, somewhere intimate yet lively enough for a gathering. Around 20 of our closest friends were invited, each thrilled to be part of the surprise. The decorations were set, music was curated to his taste, and everything was meticulously planned to perfection. We had been together for 6 years, and this was my way of showing how much he meant to me. The evening arrived, the lights were dimmed just right, and the buzz of anticipation filled the room. As guests mingled, a 30-year-old male caught my eye. He was a friend of a friend, someone I had never met before. Tall, with a confident demeanor and an air of mystery, he stood out. Our first interaction was accidental. He bumped into me, spilling a bit of his drink on my dress. Apologizing with a charming smile, he helped me clean up, and we started talking. I felt a pull, a strange mix of curiosity and attraction that I couldn't ignore. Throughout the party, our paths kept crossing. Each encounter seemed to spark a fire between us that was impossible to extinguish. It was as if an invisible string kept drawing us together, weaving a web of intrigue and forbidden excitement. Eventually, we found ourselves in a quiet corner of the venue. It was a momentary escape from the chaos, an oasis of intimacy amidst the crowd. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, each word building a bridge over the chasm of my sanity. Then, things took a turn I didn't foresee. The music faded into the background as the world around us disappeared. We were inches apart, the air thick with tension. It was a daring dance on the edge of disaster, and before I knew it, our lips met in a whirlwind of reckless abandon. The kiss was electric, a jolt that shattered the reality I had known. The risk was intoxicating, and we were swept away by a tide of impulsive desire. The realization of what I had done hit me like a tidal wave. As the kiss ended, a whirlwind of thoughts spun in my head. I had just betrayed my partner at his own party. I felt a strange mix of guilt and adrenaline, a cocktail that left me reeling. The stranger, with a knowing look, simply walked away, disappearing into the crowd like a specter of my own folly. The party wrapped up, and my partner was blissfully unaware of the chaos that had unfolded. As I stood by his side, watching him bask in the joy of the celebration, I felt a shift within me. I had crossed a line I never imagined, and there was no turning back. Every glance at him was a reminder of the secret I now carried, a burden that weighed heavily on my conscience. Looking back, the affair at the surprise party was a moment that defied logic and reason. It was a collision of desire and recklessness that left a mark I can't erase. How does one reconcile such an act of betrayal with love? Has anyone else experienced a moment that changed everything in an instant? I never thought I'd find myself in such a messed up situation, but here I am. It started as an ordinary day, visiting my partner of 2 years at his shared apartment. We'd been having a quiet weekend, nothing out of the ordinary. He's 26M, and his roommate, a 25M, lived there too. The roommate and I had exchanged pleasantries a few times, nothing more than casual interactions. That day, my partner decided to go grocery shopping. He asked if I wanted to join, but I declined, opting to relax instead. As he left, a peculiar feeling settled over me, an awareness of being alone with the roommate. The apartment seemed quieter, the air heavier. We found ourselves in the living room. There was a moment of awkward silence, then the roommate suggested watching a movie. It seemed harmless enough, so I agreed. As we sat on the couch, the proximity was closer than usual. Our knees brushed, and neither of us moved away. I felt his gaze linger on me a second too long. A movie started, some action flick with a predictable plot. We shared a bowl of popcorn, our hands occasionally touching. The tension was subtle, yet unmistakable. Then, a particularly dramatic scene played, and he made a move, leaning closer, whispering something about the film. It was a bold gesture, and I hesitated, but then I found myself leaning in, crossing an invisible line. What happened next was a blur of motion. The closeness escalated, and suddenly we were entangled, the movie playing on, forgotten. There was a mix of adrenaline and a sense of doing something terribly wrong. My heart raced as we heard sounds outside the room. I froze, the reality of the situation hitting me, but the thrill kept me in the moment. The sound of keys jangling at the door broke the spell. We scrambled to separate, hurriedly fixing our clothes, breathing ragged. My partner stepped in, carrying bags, completely oblivious to what had just transpired. I felt the heat rising in my cheeks, a nervous energy coursing through me. I busied myself with helping him, trying to act normal, but my hands trembled slightly. Later, I sat alone, the weight of what I'd done sinking in. I'd cheated on my partner, with his roommate no less, while he was out shopping for us. The absurdity and wrongness of it all pressed down on me. I wondered what had driven me to such a reckless act, realizing the precarious situation I had created. The tension in the apartment was palpable, and I knew things could never be the same. The roommate avoided eye contact, and I found myself replaying the day's events in my head, each time more incredulous. What was supposed to be a simple visit had turned into something twisted and outrageous, leaving me to grapple with the consequences. I'm not sure what to do next. The guilt is gnawing at me, yet a part of me is still caught up in the madness of it all. I know I've created a mess that won't be easily untangled. If anyone has advice or thoughts, I'm all ears. I can't believe this is where I've ended up.
I'm a 28-year-old male, and this is a story that has twisted my life into knots. My partner, a 27-year-old female, and I have been together for about 3 years. Things seemed normal until I found myself in a situation that even I can't quite believe. It's a story that's left me questioning everything. My partner had an ex, a 29-year-old female, who was often mentioned in passing. They had a pretty significant history together, and while I knew about her, I never thought she'd become a significant part of my life. Initially, I felt a mix of curiosity and caution when her name came up. Our paths eventually crossed at a mutual friends party, where our meeting was anything but ordinary. The unexpected meeting happened during a lively weekend gathering. I walked into the room, and there she was, the partner's ex, laughing loudly among friends. The air was thick with awkward tension as we locked eyes. We exchanged polite greetings, trying to mask the discomfort with forced smiles. Despite the initial awkwardness, something unexpected sparked between us. We ended up chatting more than I anticipated, sharing stories and bonding over shared interests. The progression from innocent conversations to a full-blown affair was disturbingly quick. It began with texts and late-night calls, progressing to secret meetings in places no one would suspect. There was a thrill in the secrecy, a dangerous allure that neither of us could resist. We met in obscure cafes, at the back of libraries, places where our worlds couldn't collide. I found myself rationalizing my actions, convincing myself it was just a phase, a fleeting attraction that would pass. Balancing this secret affair while maintaining my relationship with my partner became an exhausting game. I found myself coming up with creative excuses for my absence, late nights at work, sudden errands, and unexpected meetups with old friends. The lies came too easily, and I hate to admit that I became adept at deception. There were several close calls, like the time my partner almost saw a text notification, or when she questioned why I smelled like a perfume that wasn't hers. The twist came when I learned that the partner's ex still considered me her closest friend, despite everything. We were sitting in her apartment, the room dimly lit, as she casually mentioned how she valued our connection more than any other friendship she had. I was taken aback, struck by the absurdity of the situation. How could she see me as a friend when we were tangled in this web of deceit? Internally, I was a mix of disbelief and a strange, twisted relief. Now, the present situation is nothing short of a balancing act on a razor's edge. My relationship with my partner is stable on the surface, but there's an undercurrent of tension I can feel every time we're together. The ex and I still meet, and the facade of friendship covers the reality of our affair. There are moments when I catch my partner looking at me with an intensity that makes me wonder if she knows or at least suspects. My actions have become a silent testament to the chaos I've caused. As I sit here, reflecting on this tangled mess, I'm left with a sense of impending doom and strange anticipation. I know that one day, the truth will unravel in a way I can't predict. Until then, I'm living in a state of constant tension, wondering how long this charade can last. The future is uncertain, and I'm left pondering the consequences of my choices.
I never imagined I'd be writing this, but my life has taken a turn for the absolutely bizarre. I'm a 27-year-old woman, and my story involves my 28-year-old partner and their 50-year-old parent. Things started off normal enough, but quickly spiraled into something shocking. My partner and I had been together for a few years when I first met their parent. It was at a family gathering. The parent, a 50-year-old of undeniable charisma, was hosting. As the evening wore on, I noticed we shared a similar sense of humor, exchanging glances and inside jokes. It seemed harmless then, but that connection planted the seed for what was to come. The first encounter that crossed the line happened unexpectedly. I was at their house, alone, waiting for my partner to arrive. The parent came home early, and we ended up having a couple of drinks. One thing led to another, and the tension that had been building culminated in a reckless, intimate moment. I left that day feeling an overwhelming mix of excitement and guilt, yet unable to deny the thrill of what had happened. From then on, we arranged secret meetings whenever the opportunity arose. Each encounter felt like stepping into a dangerous game. We'd sneak away during family events or find excuses to be alone. There was always the risk of being caught. Once, my partner almost walked in on us. I remember hastily rearranging my clothes, heart pounding as we pretended to be engaged in casual conversation. My internal conflict was palpable. I was betraying my partner, yet drawn irresistibly to their parent. The affair intensified over the months. The thrill of secrecy was intoxicating, but so was the weight of what I was doing. My behavior around my partner shifted. I became more distant, always on edge, expecting our secret to be exposed at any moment. The guilt was like an invisible shadow, ever present. Yet, every stolen moment with their parent felt like a defiance of reality, a venture into a world only we inhabited. The end came abruptly. We were caught in a close call that was too close for comfort. The parent realized the risk was too great and decided to end it. Our last meeting was tense, filled with unspoken emotions. As we parted, I felt a mix of regret for what I had lost and relief for the weight lifted off my conscience. I returned home, determined to repair the damage and move on. But then, the gifts started arriving. At first, it was subtle. A book I'd mentioned liking, then a more personal item, something only the parent and I would understand. As the weeks passed, the gifts became more frequent and more extravagant. A designer watch, expensive perfumes, each package a reminder of the past I was trying to escape. I tried to return them, even left some unopened at their doorstep, but they kept coming. Now I find myself in an ongoing dilemma. My partner remains blissfully unaware. Their parent continues this twisted attempt to maintain a connection, and I'm stuck in the middle. Each day is a balancing act, trying to keep the relationship with my partner intact while managing the unwanted attention from their parent. I'm left questioning my own decisions, caught between a past that refuses to let go and a future that's uncertain at best. The situation is a tangled web of secrets and desires, and I have no idea how it will unravel. For now, I'm living in a state of constant suspense, wondering when the next gift will arrive and what it will mean for all of us.
As a 30-year-old man, the excitement for my wedding was palpable, but so was a growing unease. The rehearsal dinner was meant to be a celebration of love and commitment, held in an exquisite venue filled with laughter and anticipation. My 28-year-old fiancé was radiant, surrounded by family and friends, completely unaware of the turmoil about to unfold. The venue was enchanting, bathed in soft light that seemed to amplify the joy in the air. As I navigated through clusters of guests, I encountered a 29-year-old woman, a distant acquaintance from my fiancé's side. Her eyes met mine, and a curious tension sparked between us. She was magnetic, her presence both unsettling and irresistible, a stark contrast to the evening's expected harmony. Our paths crossed repeatedly, as if orchestrated by some unseen force. Each encounter seemed to deepen the connection, a subtle dance around the room. We exchanged words, light and airy, yet charged with an unspoken promise. Her laughter was a siren's call, pulling me into a realm of recklessness. As the dinner unfolded, the world around me blurred, leaving only the two of us in sharp focus. The pivotal moment arrived when we found ourselves in a secluded hallway, away from prying eyes. The hum of distant conversations faded, replaced by the silence of our own making. The decision to act was impulsive, fueled by a mixture of adrenaline and desire. The affair was a storm of sensation, a brief escape from reality that left no room for rational thought. We emerged from that hidden corner, a silent agreement to maintain the facade, to slip back into the roles expected of us. Returning to the main hall, I was gripped by a wave of panic. My fiancée, blissfully unaware, was the picture of happiness, her love for me evident in every gesture. I moved through the crowd, engaging in conversations that felt hollow, my mind racing with the implications of my actions. Each smile felt like a betrayal, each interaction a reminder of the chaos I had invited into my life. As the evening wound down, the enormity of what I had done settled heavily on my shoulders. The affair was a reckless act, a fissure in the foundation of what was meant to be a lifelong commitment. My thoughts were a whirlwind of guilt and fear, the consequences looming ominously on the horizon. I was left with a choice: to bury the secret and continue down the path I had chosen, or to confront the truth and face the fallout. The decision was paralyzing, a haunting reminder of how quickly everything could spiral into the outrageous.
I'm a 29F, and my partner, a 31M, just received a big promotion at his job. We were both thrilled, and he decided to throw a celebration party at an upscale venue with his colleagues. I was excited to be there for him, but as the evening went on, I started to feel a bit out of place. The atmosphere was lively, with music playing and people clinking glasses in celebration. My partner was fully immersed in conversations, a glass of champagne in hand, laughing and networking with his colleagues. I tried to mingle, making small talk with a few people I didn't know well, but I felt somewhat like an outsider in the crowd. That's when I met his boss, a 45M. He approached me while my partner was deep in discussion with someone else. We started talking, our conversation light and polite at first. As the drinks flowed, the tone shifted subtly, becoming more flirtatious. I didn't think much of it at the time. After all, it was a party, and everyone was in high spirits. My partner was busy, completely engrossed in networking, leaving me to engage more with the boss. Our conversation grew more personal, moving beyond work and small talk. I don't know if it was the alcohol or something else, but I felt an undeniable attraction building between us. It was one of those moments where everything around me seemed to blur, and I made a reckless decision. We sneaked away from the main party, searching for some privacy. We ended up in a secluded corner of the venue, where things escalated quickly. We shared an intimate moment, one that crossed a line I should never have crossed. The gravity of what had just happened hit me like a ton of bricks immediately afterward. The boss seemed unfazed, maintaining a casual demeanor that only deepened my sense of guilt and confusion. I returned to the party, trying to act as if nothing had happened. My partner was beaming with happiness, surrounded by his friends and colleagues, celebrating his big achievement. Seeing him so content and proud amplified the guilt that was now gnawing at me. I avoided the boss for the rest of the evening, keeping my distance and avoiding eye contact. Later, as the party started to wind down, I found myself reflecting on the night's events and the potential consequences. The weight of what I'd done hung over me, feelings of guilt and remorse settling in. I kept replaying the night in my head, knowing the impact it could have on my relationship if the truth ever came out. Now I'm here on Reddit, seeking advice. I'm torn between confessing everything to my partner or keeping this secret buried. I know how much this promotion means to him, and the thought of shattering that happiness is unbearable. But keeping this secret is already eating away at me, and I'm unsure how long I can live with it. In a small room lined with chairs, a 30-year-old woman and her 32-year-old male partner attended a support group for couples facing relationship issues. The group was a lifeline, a place where they hoped to mend the invisible rifts that had slowly grown between them. It was here that a 28-year-old male member caught her attention. The group's dynamic was intriguing, a mix of shared confessions and therapeutic exercises that nudged everyone closer. It became a ritual, a safe space to voice what was unsaid at home. The 28-year-old male was new but quickly integrated, his contributions candid and insightful. The woman noticed how he spoke with a certain intensity that was both comforting and unsettling. Their connection began innocuously enough. Conversations after the group sessions became a norm. One evening, as the group was dispersing, a glance lingered longer than it should have, a silent acknowledgement of a mutual curiosity that neither of them fully understood yet. The meetings outside the group started innocently. They'd grab coffee, sharing stories about their lives. It was after one group session when they decided to take a walk. As dusk settled, the conversation turned more personal, their laughter echoing in the empty streets. She began rationalizing these meetings, telling herself it was merely friendship, a harmless escape from the monotony of her relationship, but lines blurred quickly. One evening, the 28-year-old male leaned in, his hand brushing hers as they sat on a park bench. She didn't pull away. They exchanged messages, each one more daring than the last. Soon they were meeting in secret, finding secluded places where they could be alone. Their first intimate encounter was rushed, a mix of adrenaline and guilt, but it solidified their bond in a way that was both exhilarating and terrifying. The support group soon became a minefield of tension. She felt the weight of her actions in every session, her partner oblivious to the storm brewing beside him. She noticed subtle shifts in group dynamics, how she'd avoid eye contact with the 28-year-old male while her partner spoke. Her guilt manifested in small ways, averted gazes, hurried departures. The revelation came crashing down one evening. Her partner, suspicious of her frequent outings, found a message on her phone, a message that left no room for doubt. The confrontation was explosive, an eruption of hurt and betrayal that shattered the fragile peace they'd built. He had overheard a conversation, pieced together the clues she thought were hidden. The aftermath was a whirlwind. The support group became a battleground, their issues now laid bare for all to see. The woman found herself reflecting on her actions, the choices that led to this chaos. She'd sought something beyond her reach, driven by a reckless desire that now left a trail of destruction. In the quiet moments, she pondered the impact of her actions, not just on her relationship, but on herself. The group, once a beacon of hope, now felt like a reminder of everything that went wrong. Her partner, now distant, was a constant reminder of the trust she shattered, and the 28-year-old male, a symbol of temptation that had turned her world upside down. Life was a whirlwind for a 30-something female working in a high-pressure corporate office. Deadlines loomed large, and the day of the big meeting had arrived, a meeting that could make or break her career. The morning was a blur of coffee cups and stacks of paperwork, with the tension palpable in the air. The office buzzed with anticipation and stress. A 30-something male coworker had been a constant presence in her work life. Their interactions were loaded with unspoken words and lingering glances, creating a chemistry that was both intoxicating and dangerous. The office, with its gray walls and sterile lighting, became a stage for their unacknowledged attraction. Every meeting, every passing in the hallway seemed to build on the tension, a silent dare that neither could ignore. On this particular day, with stakes high and nerves frayed, the atmosphere felt electrically charged. The pressure of the impending meeting had pushed her to her limits. Personal stresses and professional anxieties collided, culminating in a single reckless decision. The encounter in the bathroom was a culmination of weeks of bottled emotions, a moment where all rationality vanished. The stress of impending deadlines, coupled with the allure of the forbidden, became an intoxicating cocktail. Her mind was a storm of conflicting thoughts, each screaming for attention, leaving her grasping for anything to break the tension. In the stillness of the office bathroom, away from prying eyes, urgency took over. The encounter was hasty, their whispered exchanges drowned out by the hum of the fluorescent lights above. The bathroom's cold tiles and harsh lighting added an illicit thrill to the moment. They moved with a furtive urgency, conscious of the ticking clock and the thin walls. The clatter of a dropped pen or the echo of a distant conversation outside was enough to jolt them into an acute awareness of their surroundings. But in those stolen moments, the world outside faded away, leaving only the pulse of adrenaline and the immediacy of their actions. As the encounter ended, reality rushed back with dizzying speed. The office bathroom became a stark reminder of where they were, what had just happened. She hurriedly adjusted her clothes, her heart racing, and mind struggling to process the jumble of thoughts and emotions. The clock continued its relentless march towards the meeting time, leaving no space for reflection or regret. She darted out of the bathroom, her steps quickened by the urgency of the situation, feeling as though everyone she passed somehow knew her secret. The meeting room was a stark contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded. Colleagues filed in, each carrying their own burdens of stress and expectation. She took her place at the table, forcing her mind to focus on the agenda laid out before her. But her thoughts were a tangled web, caught between the aftermath of her impulsive act and the need to project competence. The voices around her blurred into a monotone hum as she fought to maintain composure, acutely aware of the coworker sitting across the table. In the days following, the repercussions began to unfold. At work, there were no whispers, no accusations, only the silent knowledge shared between two people. The dynamic with her coworker shifted, their interactions now tinged with an awkwardness that hadn't existed before. Outside of work, the encounter cast long shadows over her personal life, leaving her to navigate the consequences alone. The guilt settled in, a constant companion that refused to be ignored. Reflecting on the events, she realized the gravity of her actions, the risks taken, and the lines crossed. It was a shocking revelation, one that left her questioning her judgment and the path that had led to such a moment. The lessons were bitter but inescapable, etched into her memory as a reminder of a day when everything changed. In the end, she was left with a simple truth. Actions have consequences, and some lines once crossed cannot be uncrossed. As a 32-year-old woman, I found myself sitting in the therapist's office with my 35-year-old partner, both of us hoping to salvage our faltering relationship. We had been struggling for months, and couples therapy seemed like our last resort. The sessions were meant to help us communicate better, but they also introduced me to something, or rather someone, unexpected. The sessions were held in a small, dimly lit room with a circle of chairs where we and a few other couples gathered weekly. Each couple was dealing with their own unique set of challenges, and the air was thick with a mix of hope and desperation. We would share our struggles, guided by a therapist who tried to steer us towards solutions. Among the couples was a 34-year-old man, whose presence I became increasingly aware of as the sessions went on. It started with a glance during a particularly heated discussion. He, like me, seemed disconnected from his partner, a 33-year-old woman. During a coffee break, we ended up in a conversation, sharing our frustrations with the process and our respective partners. We both laughed at how therapy sometimes felt like a performance, a dance of words meant to impress rather than connect. That shared sentiment sparked something I hadn't felt in a while, a sense of being understood. What began as casual chats before and after sessions quickly evolved. We started meeting outside the confines of therapy, initially under the pretext of discussing our progress. Our meetings became more frequent, and before I knew it, I was living a double life. We would meet in secluded cafes, exchanging stories and secrets. Every stolen glance and touch felt like a thrilling escape from the monotony of my failing relationship. Our conversations were intimate, our silences charged with unspoken desires. Meanwhile, I continued attending therapy with my partner, who earnestly worked to fix what was broken between us. He planned date nights, read books on relationships, and poured his heart into the sessions, hoping we could rekindle what we once had. While he was trying to save us, I was slipping further away, caught in a whirlwind of emotions I couldn't quite reconcile. The thrill of the affair was intoxicating, yet each time I looked at my partner's hopeful eyes, a pang of guilt gnawed at me. The double life was exhausting but exhilarating. I would come home from meetings with the 34-year-old man, feeling alive in a way I hadn't for years. Yet there was a constant tension, a fear of being caught. The act of juggling these two worlds felt like walking on a tightrope, and every step I took threatened to unravel the precarious balance I had created. One evening, after a particularly passionate encounter, I returned home to find my partner waiting with a candlelit dinner. He looked at me with a mixture of love and hope, and for a moment, I was struck by the depth of his commitment. It was then that I realized how far I had drifted from the person I wanted to be. Standing in the kitchen, the contrast between the warmth of my partner's gestures and the excitement of my affair hit me hard. As I sat across from him, his eyes searching mine for reassurance, I was forced to confront the reality of my actions. The choices I had made were tearing me apart, and I was left questioning what I truly wanted. This tangled web of deceit had become too complex, and I knew I couldn't continue living this way. Now I'm at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. The consequences of my actions loom large, and I am left pondering the true nature of love and fidelity. This experience has been a twisted journey of self-discovery, leaving me to wonder if it's ever possible to truly fix what's broken, or if some paths are better left unexplored. Planning a wedding with someone you love should be the happiest time of your life. At 28, I was engaged to a 30-year-old man, surrounded by his tight-knit group of friends who were more like family. They eagerly involved themselves in the wedding preparations, which made everything seem perfect. Little did I know, beneath the surface, things were about to take a twisted turn. One of his friends, the leader of the group, was a 32-year-old man with an undeniable charm. He was the kind of person who could light up a room with just his presence, and he naturally took charge of many wedding tasks. His charisma was infectious, and his involvement in our plans made him a constant presence in my life. We frequently met to discuss arrangements, and his enthusiasm was contagious. My partner trusted him implicitly, but I was about to learn how easily that trust could be misplaced. The shift happened slowly. The group leader started offering help beyond what was necessary, staying late after meetings to assist with details. Our conversations, initially about seating arrangements and menus, started veering into personal territory. We shared stories, laughed at inside jokes, and discovered mutual interests. It was subtle at first, but the attraction was there, simmering just beneath the surface. What began as harmless camaraderie quickly transformed into something more, marked by lingering glances and a racing heartbeat that couldn't be ignored. One night, the group had gathered for an especially long planning session. As the evening wore on and others began to leave, it was just the two of us left, surrounded by wedding plans and the soft glow of table lamps. The tension in the air was thick, and in a moment of shared laughter, the line was crossed. a simple touch turned into something intimate. The risk was intoxicating, and each secret meeting thereafter was charged with the thrill of potentially being discovered. It was reckless, yet the pull between us was undeniable, creating a whirlwind of deceit. Living this double life was a precarious balancing act. By day, I was the picture of a dutiful fiancé, deeply involved in the wedding planning. But by night, I found myself sneaking away for stolen moments with him. The thrill of our encounters was mixed with guilt, yet I couldn't resist. Each furtive glance across a room full of friends felt like a silent confession, and the weight of the secret grew heavier. The allure of our forbidden connection overshadowed any looming consequences, a ticking time bomb ready to explode. Inevitably, the truth came crashing down. Whether it was a misplaced message or a telling glance, something tipped off my partner or perhaps one of the friends. The confrontation was swift and brutal, emotions running high. Shock turned to anger and betrayal, and the friend group erupted in disbelief and chaos. The carefully constructed facade shattered, leaving a tangled mess of broken trust and ruined relationships. The wedding plans, once a hopeful symbol of our future, were now in jeopardy. In the aftermath, I was left to face the consequences of my choices. The relationships I had taken for granted were strained, if not irreparably damaged. The wedding was postponed indefinitely, my partner needing time to process the betrayal. Reflecting on my actions, I realized the extent of the hurt I had caused, the reckless abandon with which I had risked everything. As I navigate this uncertain future, the only certainty is that things will never be the same. The path forward is unclear, a stark reminder of the chaos left in the wake of my impulsive decisions. I was 29, a woman caught in the chaos of my partner's illness, and never imagined I'd find myself embroiled in an affair with their doctor. The day my 31-year-old partner was diagnosed with a debilitating condition, our lives plunged into a relentless cycle of hospital visits and treatment plans. I was the steadfast support, but beneath the surface, cracks were forming. One of those cracks led me straight into the arms of a 40-year-old doctor. Our first encounter was during a routine consultation. His presence was commanding, a pillar of strength in a world that felt like it was crumbling. He asked how I was managing, a question that felt personal and unexpected. Our eyes met, and something shifted, a spark ignited. I found myself looking forward to these appointments, drawn to the doctor's charisma. It began innocently enough, a text here and there about my partner's treatment. But soon, our exchanges became more frequent, tinged with a personal touch that should have set off alarms. Coffee in the hospital cafeteria turned into dinners at secluded restaurants. We told ourselves it was just two people finding comfort in each other. But deep down, we knew it was more. The hospital became our clandestine meeting place. Between appointments, we would steal moments in empty corridors or his office. One evening, the weight of everything became too much, and we succumbed to the pull between us. It was as though the world outside ceased to exist, and only we remained, entwined in a reckless affair. Our meetings were a whirlwind of passion and secrecy. Each encounter was electrifying, charged with the thrill of possibly being discovered. My partner, oblivious to the turmoil, focused on recovery while I lived a double life. I justified my actions, telling myself this is a temporary escape from the suffocating reality of my life. As the affair progressed, guilt began to shadow every moment. I became distant at home, distracted by the secrets I carried. My partner noticed the change, their trust in me beginning to erode. They never voiced suspicions, but the tension between us was palpable. I could see it in their eyes, a flicker of doubt that I desperately tried to ignore. The doctor, aware of the risk to his career, seemed caught in the same web of rationalizations. We were playing a dangerous game, and the stakes were high. If discovered, our actions could shatter lives. Mine, the doctor's, and most importantly, my partner's. Every meeting was fraught with the knowledge that we were standing on a precipice. One wrong move, one slip of the tongue, and our secret could explode into the open, leaving destruction in its wake. Yet, we continued, drawn to each other like moths to a flame. I found myself questioning the morality of my choices, tangled in a web of personal turmoil. The affair was a betrayal on multiple fronts, of my partner's trust, of the doctor's professional ethics, and of the very vows that held my relationship together. Even now, I grapple with the aftermath, haunted by the decisions I made. I often wonder how far one should go for personal solace and at what cost. The echoes of those secretive encounters linger, a constant reminder of a path chosen in a moment of weakness, a question that remains unanswered and a lesson that came too late. I'm a 30-year-old woman living with my 32-year-old male partner. On the surface, everything seems fine, but a spark was missing. That's when the 35-year-old male neighbor moved in. His presence was magnetic, and our casual interactions gradually turned into something more charged. One day, he casually mentioned having a spare key under his mat. It seemed innocent, but it soon became the key to our secret affair. The first time I used the key was a daring leap into the unknown. My partner was engrossed in a work call, oblivious to my plan. Heart racing, I crept across the hallway, slipping into the neighbor's apartment. Inside, the air was thick with tension. We moved quietly, every sound from the hallway amplifying the risk. Our actions were our only words, expressing what we couldn't say aloud. The adrenaline was addictive, overshadowing the guilt that lurked in the background. That rainy afternoon marked the beginning of our illicit escapades. Our meetings quickly fell into a routine. Tuesdays and Thursdays became our designated days, carefully chosen when my partner was busiest. I'd craft excuses to leave, a quick need to check the mail or forgot something next door, and slip into the neighbor's apartment. Each time, my heart would pound with the thrill of the clandestine. Inside, we'd steal precious moments, ever aware of the ticking clock. We listened for any noises from my apartment, each creak a reminder of the precarious line we walked. Despite the risks, the excitement was undeniable, creating a temporary escape from the mundane. There were several heart-stopping moments where our secret nearly unraveled. Once, my partner unexpectedly knocked on the neighbor's door, looking for me. I barely managed to hide, heart thudding in my chest as he called my name. Another time, a different neighbor caught sight of me entering, their curious look sending a chill down my spine. Each close call was a stark reminder of the dangerous game we played, adding to the mounting stress. It was a delicate balance, the fear of exposure shadowing every encounter. Despite the thrill, the affair gnawed at my conscience. Guilt was a constant companion, especially during quiet moments with my partner. The duplicity was a mental tug-of-war, leaving me torn between the excitement of the affair and the comfort of my relationship. Part of me longed for honesty, to end the charade and return to simplicity. Yet, the allure of the forbidden was intoxicating, pulling me back into the web of secrecy. I found myself questioning everything, my feelings, my choices, and the path I had chosen. As I continue this perilous dance, I wonder how long it can last. The thrill of the affair is undeniable, but so is the risk. I'm trapped between the excitement of this secret life and the potential fallout of coming clean. What would you do if you were caught in such a twisted predicament?
I never imagined that a trip meant to be the start of a new life would lead me down such a twisted path. I'm a 28-year-old male, and my partner, a 27-year-old female, were over the moon as we embarked on our honeymoon to a picturesque island. We had been saving up for months, dreaming about this perfect escape. The island was a paradise, with golden beaches and clear blue waters. We were like any other newlywed couple, full of enthusiasm and affection, eager to explore every corner of this romantic getaway. From the outside, we seemed like the perfect pair, but beneath the surface, I was teetering on the edge of a decision that would shake the foundation of our relationship. It all started one sunny afternoon by the hotel pool. I noticed a 26-year-old woman lounging on a chair nearby. She had an air of mystery and confidence that drew my attention. My partner went to the spa, leaving me alone to my thoughts and, as it turned out, my impulses. The woman struck up a conversation, her voice smooth and inviting. We talked about trivial things, but there was an undeniable undercurrent of tension. The temptation was electrifying. We exchanged flirtatious glances, and before I knew it, she suggested a private walk along the secluded part of the beach. My mind raced with the possibilities and the risks. Yet, in a moment of reckless abandon, I agreed. As we walked along the shore, the crashing waves seemed to drown out my inner voice of reason. I found myself caught up in the moment, pulled by a force I couldn't resist. We found a hidden spot among the rocks, out of sight from prying eyes. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of fear and excitement. I knew I was crossing a line, but the thrill of the forbidden overshadowed any sense of guilt. We kissed, and in those moments, the world around us disappeared. It was as if I had stepped into another reality, one where consequences didn't exist. Afterward, as we walked back to the hotel, reality came crashing down. I felt a wave of panic and shame wash over me, but I pushed it aside, focusing instead on maintaining a facade of normalcy. My partner returned, blissfully unaware of the secret I now carried. Each smile and loving gesture from her was a reminder of my betrayal. The next few days were a delicate dance of deception. There were moments when I thought she might have suspected something, a glance that lingered too long, a question asked with unusual emphasis, but nothing ever came of it. I became adept at weaving a web of lies, rationalizing my actions as a one-time lapse in judgment. In my mind, I painted myself as a victim of circumstance, trapped by the allure of a stranger in a foreign land. I justified my actions, telling myself that it was a fleeting mistake that wouldn't change the course of our lives. Yet, deep down, a gnawing guilt persisted, a constant reminder of my duplicity. Now, as we settle into our routine back home, the weight of my secret grows heavier. My partner continues to live in blissful ignorance, and our relationship appears stronger than ever. But I know that beneath the surface lies a truth that could unravel everything. I wonder if I should come clean, or if it's better to bury this memory deep within, hoping it never resurfaces. The choice haunts me, a reminder of the darkness lurking beneath the surface of our perfect life.
The weekend was supposed to be about bonding with my 30-year-old male partner's family at their annual reunion. It was held at a sprawling countryside estate, where laughter and chatter echoed through the gardens. People of all ages milled about, engaging in games and catching up on life. As a 28-year-old female, I was keen to make a good impression. The estate was buzzing with activity, and I was introduced to a 32-year-old male guest, a distant relative of my partner. There was something electrifying about our interactions, subtle but undeniable. A few shared smiles and lingering glances were all it took for the chemistry to spark. Throughout the day, these casual yet significant encounters left me both intrigued and anxious. As evening descended, a bonfire became the focal point of the gathering. I found myself seated next to the guest, our knees brushing occasionally, sending jolts through my body. We shared a moment of laughter over a shared joke, and his arm brushed against mine, a touch that seemed to linger longer than necessary. Meanwhile, my partner was busy organizing activities and mingling with relatives, leaving me more freedom than I should have had. The night grew darker, and the fire's glow cast a flickering light over the group. The guest and I exchanged a look that said more than words ever could. The decision to slip away from the bonfire was mutual, unspoken yet understood. We wandered into a secluded corner of the estate, a dimly lit area far from the prying eyes of the party. The encounter was brief, a flurry of adrenaline and reckless abandon. The fear of being caught loomed over us like a dark cloud, but the thrill was intoxicating. It was a moment driven by impulse, completely at odds with my usual self. The reality of what had just happened hit me like a tidal wave as we hurriedly composed ourselves and returned to the gathering. Back at the bonfire, guilt settled heavily on my shoulders. Making eye contact with the guest was excruciating, each glance a reminder of the betrayal. My partner remained oblivious, engrossed in conversations and familial duties, while I struggled with an internal conflict that threatened to unravel me. The weekend continued, but a shadow hung over my interactions. Every conversation felt forced, every smile a facade. The guest and I avoided any further contact, the earlier tension replaced by an awkward silence. The secret weighed heavily, a constant reminder of the line I had crossed. I found myself torn between the urge to confess and the fear of the consequences. The thought of revealing what happened and shattering the trust of someone I cared about deeply was terrifying. Yet the idea of carrying this secret, letting it fester, was equally daunting. The reunion weekend concluded without incident, but the ending felt hollow. As we packed to leave, I couldn't shake the sense of impending doom, the feeling that this would eventually come to light, one way or another. For now, I carry this secret alone, uncertain of what the future holds. As a 35-year-old woman with a seemingly stable family life, I never thought I'd be here, sharing this outrageous story. But here I am, tangled in an affair with my 10-year-old child's 40-year-old male teacher, using parent-teacher conferences as a cover. Our family life appeared picture-perfect, with my partner and I balancing careers and parenting. However, my child's academic struggles led to frequent school visits. That's where it all started. It was at a school event where we first met. I noticed him immediately. His presence was magnetic. During the event, our eyes met across the room, and there was an undeniable spark. As we exchanged pleasantries, a casual brush of hands sent a jolt through me, something I hadn't felt in years. The chemistry was palpable, and we both knew it. The first parent-teacher conference was meant to discuss my child's progress. Sitting across from him, the conversation quickly took on flirtatious undertones. His suggestive comments were met with my playful banter, a dance of words that left my heart racing. The line was crossed during a private meeting scheduled to focus on my child's educational needs. Alone in his classroom, the setting shifted from professional to intimate. One moment we were discussing study plans. The next we were wrapped in each other's arms, lost in a forbidden embrace. The thrill of secrecy heightened every touch and whispered word. These meetings became regular occurrences, each masked as a discussion about my child's progress. We developed a routine, careful to maintain appearances. Meetings were scheduled during school hours, ensuring minimal suspicion. Yet, with each encounter, the risk increased, adding to the adrenaline rush. Despite the excitement, the consequences weighed heavily on me. I would often find myself contemplating the risk, the chance of being discovered. At home, my partner remained blissfully unaware, and guilt gnawed at me during family dinners and school events. The fear of shattering my family's life loomed large, yet the allure of the affair was irresistible. Currently, our affair continues under the guise of educational discussions. Each meeting leaves me torn between the desire to continue and the moral dilemma of ending it. The secrecy that once excited me now feels like a ticking time bomb. I'm sharing this here to seek advice, or perhaps to find someone who has navigated similar twisted waters. I'm aware of how shocking and outrageous this situation is, and yet, it's my reality. What would you do in my position?
I never imagined I'd be in such a twisted mess. As a 29-year-old man, I cheated on my partner with her 26-year-old sister. Now the sister wants this secret buried forever. It's a situation filled with shocking twists that leave me questioning every choice I've made. My partner and I have been together for 5 years. She's 28, and we've built a seemingly stable life. Her 26-year-old sister was always around, often joining us for dinners and outings. They were close, which made the entire dynamic both comforting and complicated. There was never any hint of trouble until a weekend getaway, organized by my partner, brought us all together at a lakeside cabin. The sibling and I always had a friendly rapport, but nothing ever crossed the line until that ill-fated trip when everything spiraled out of control. The weekend was meant to be relaxing. We were a small group, enjoying nature and late-night conversations by the fire. One evening, as everyone turned in, the sister and I stayed up, sharing stories and a few too many drinks. The atmosphere shifted subtly. Laughter turned to whispers. It was a chilly night, and as the fire crackled, we moved closer, our conversations becoming more intimate. A momentary lapse in judgment led to a kiss, one that quickly escalated. It was a whirlwind of stolen moments and hushed giggles, yet in the back of my mind, I knew this was a line I shouldn't cross. The night ended with the two of us sneaking back to our rooms, a heavy silence hanging between us, knowing we'd done something irreversible. The next morning, reality hit hard. I avoided eye contact with my partner, the guilt gnawing at me. The sibling, however, was composed, pulling me aside discreetly. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady. We found a secluded spot by the lake. She proposed we never speak of it again, insisting that revealing the truth would destroy everything. Her calm demeanor was unnerving, a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. I nodded, not knowing what else to do. Back at the cabin, the sibling acted as if nothing happened, seamlessly blending back into the family dynamic. The rest of the weekend was a blur of forced smiles and silent glances, a secret pact hanging between us. I felt trapped in my own web of deceit. The sibling's suggestion made sense, but the weight of the secret was suffocating. I couldn't shake off the guilt, the constant fear of discovery. Yet, the thought of shattering my partner's world kept me silent. I was torn between confessing and maintaining this fragile facade. The siblings' calm acceptance of the situation only deepened my confusion. I found myself questioning not just my actions, but the very foundation of my morals and commitments. How did a single moment of weakness lead to such a profound internal battle? A week later, unable to bear the silence, I confronted the sibling. We met at a quiet cafe, the air thick with tension. "I can't keep pretending," I said. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. "We made a mistake, but telling her won't fix it," she argued. Her insistence on secrecy was unwavering, and her logic coldly practical. "Think about the fallout," she pressed. Our conversation was intense, each word heavy with implication. We discussed how to navigate family gatherings, how to interact with my partner without raising suspicion, crafting a narrative of normalcy amidst the chaos. Now I find myself caught in a moral quagmire. The secret looms large, a constant shadow over every interaction. I wonder if silence is truly the lesser evil, or if confession is the only path to redemption. Each day is a balancing act, trying to maintain the lie while grappling with the guilt. My relationship hangs in the balance, its foundations shaken by this buried truth. I'm left pondering the future, the choices I must make, and the price of my indiscretion. The siblings' desire for secrecy is a temporary fix, but the question remains, how long can we keep this secret before it unravels everything? As a 30-year-old male, I recently accompanied my 28-year-old female partner to her family home for a weekend visit. It was supposed to be a relaxing getaway, a chance to meet more of her family and friends. Little did I know, it would turn into something far more shocking. Upon arriving, we were greeted with open arms, and the atmosphere was warm and welcoming. Among the familiar faces was a 45-year-old woman who, as I soon learned, was my partner's childhood babysitter. She seemed like part of the family, and everyone was happy to see her. The evening began with a lively gathering, and the conversation flowed easily. As the night wore on, the babysitter started sharing stories from the past, regaling us with tales of my partner's younger days. There was a moment when our eyes met across the room, and I felt an unexpected connection. Her gaze lingered, and her remarks were laced with a subtle suggestiveness that caught me off guard. The next day, with the rest of the family occupied, I found myself alone with the babysitter. Our conversation turned flirtatious, and the atmosphere shifted to something more charged. One thing led to another, and in a moment that still seems surreal, we found ourselves in a shocking embrace. The tension was electric, and we decided to meet again, under the cloak of secrecy. Over the next few days, we orchestrated a series of clandestine meetings. The thrill was intoxicating, and the risk of being caught only heightened the experience. There were several close calls. Once, my partner nearly walked in on us during a particularly risky encounter. Yet somehow, I managed to maintain the facade, playing the role of a devoted partner while juggling this secret affair. However, as the days passed, the weight of what I was doing began to bear down on me. The internal conflict was overwhelming. I knew it couldn't last, and a near-exposure incident nearly unraveled everything. In a moment of clarity, I realized the madness had to end before it was too late. Before we left, I met with the babysitter one last time. We agreed to put an end to the affair. It was a mutual understanding that whatever had happened needed to stay buried in the past. Reflecting on the experience now, I'm still shocked at how quickly things spiraled out of control. The impact on my relationship lingers, a constant reminder of the twisted events that unfolded during what was supposed to be a simple family visit.
I'm a 28-year-old woman in a long-term relationship with a 30-year-old man. We've built a stable life together, but there's a twist in our seemingly perfect story. My partner's childhood best friend, also 30, visits us regularly. He's been around forever, part of the family in a way that nobody questions. But behind closed doors, I'm cheating with him. It's an outrageous secret that I'm tangled in, a web of deceit that tightens with every visit. Our relationship dynamics have always been steady. My partner and I share responsibilities and plans for the future. His best friend is a constant presence, joining us for dinners, weekend gatherings, and even vacations. While my partner sees him as a brother, I began to see him differently. The chemistry was undeniable, simmering beneath the surface. It was unspoken, yet potent, and it was only a matter of time before it came to a head. One evening, my partner left for a quick errand, leaving me alone with his best friend. The living room felt charged with tension. A simple touch, his hand brushing against mine, was all it took to spark the inevitable. We exchanged a look that spoke volumes. Our interactions took on a new intensity. One night, after my partner went to bed early, we were alone on the porch. The attraction was electric, and a shared glance led to a whispered confession. Before we knew it, we were kissing. It was wrong, but it felt unavoidable. We both knew we were crossing a line, but neither of us could stop. That stolen kiss was just the beginning. We became masters of deception, snatching moments alone whenever possible. A quick touch in the kitchen, a lingering look across the room, stolen moments in the car, all under my partner's oblivious gaze. It was a dangerous game, but the thrill was intoxicating. One afternoon, when my partner was at work, his best friend came over under the pretense of fixing a leaky sink. We ended up in a passionate embrace in the very room my partner and I shared. Each encounter was a mix of excitement and fear, the risk of discovery adding to the allure. It was reckless and exhilarating, a secret world we inhabited, yet a ticking time bomb. Living this double life became an art form. At home, I was the devoted partner, maintaining the facade of normalcy. Yet inside, paranoia gnawed at me. I became overly attentive to details, ensuring there were no traces of our indiscretions. Conversations felt rehearsed, my actions hyper-aware around him. Meanwhile, his best friend played his role perfectly, never giving my partner any reason to suspect. During visits, we communicated through silent glances and coded language, always one step away from disaster. It was a high-wire act, and I was constantly on edge. The turning point arrived unexpectedly. One evening, as we all sat together watching a movie, my partner made an offhand comment about trust and betrayal. It was casual, yet it hit me like a ton of bricks. My composure slipped, and I saw a flicker of curiosity in the best friend's eyes. The reality of our situation crashed down on me. We were teetering on the edge of exposure, and the stakes had never been higher. That moment was a wake-up call, a reminder that our secret was a fragile thing that could unravel at any second. As I navigate this precarious situation, the question lingers: how long before the truth comes out? Each visit, each secret meeting is a step closer to the edge. The consequences are unimaginable, yet the pull of the forbidden remains strong. I'm living on borrowed time, and it's only a matter of time before everything implodes.
I never imagined I'd end up in this tangled mess, but here I am, a 28-year-old guy, tangled up in an affair with my partner's cousin. The craziest part? My partner, a 27-year-old woman, insists on weekly family game nights, bringing the cousin over each time. My partner and I have been together for 5 years. We've built a comfortable life, and until recently, everything seemed perfect. Enter the cousin, a 26-year-old guy, who I met at a family gathering. We hit it off instantly, bonding over shared interests and jokes. At first, it was all innocent fun, but things took a turn. The cousin was charming, and there was an undeniable spark between us. My partner adores her cousin, and I quickly found myself in an unthinkable situation, drawn to someone I should never have been with. It started with a few stolen glances and seemingly innocent texts. Soon, those texts turned into secret meetings. We were careful, meeting far from home, always aware of the risk. Our first encounter was electrifying, a mix of adrenaline and guilt, yet I couldn't stop. The thrill of sneaking around made it all the more intoxicating. We were cautious, making sure no one in the family would suspect anything. Every secret rendezvous was a balancing act, knowing one wrong move could shatter everything. The danger was part of the allure, and neither of us wanted to stop. Family game nights became a regular thing. My partner loved them, and it was a chance for her to connect with her cousin. The first few nights were nerve-wracking. I'd be sitting across from him, my heart pounding, trying to act normal. The cousin was a master at keeping a straight face, but every so often, there'd be a subtle touch under the table or a lingering look that spoke volumes. The tension was palpable, a silent game of its own. Every laugh or smile shared in the group felt like a dangerous dance on the edge of exposure. One particular game night stands out. We were playing a word association game, and the cousin threw a word that was an inside joke between us. My partner laughed, clueless, but I felt my face flush. The room seemed to close in, and I feared everyone could hear my heartbeat. Later, during a break, the cousin brushed against me deliberately, sending a jolt through my body. It was exhilarating and terrifying. The risk of discovery loomed over every interaction, making even the most mundane moments charged with tension. I felt trapped in a web of my own making, yet the excitement was undeniable. Every day, the risk of getting caught grows. The lies, the sneaking around, it's all starting to take a toll. I'm constantly on edge, fearing a slip-up. There have been close calls, a text almost seen, a familiar scent lingering too long. I know this can't go on, but the thought of ending it feels impossible. The cousin and I have talked about what happens if we're discovered, yet neither of us has a plan. We're stuck in this risky dance, knowing it can't end well. I'm caught in a spiral, knowing something has to give. The double life is unsustainable, and I can feel it unraveling. I'm not sure how to fix this mess, but I know I can't keep living this way. Change is inevitable, but what that looks like is still uncertain.
So here's the deal. I'm a 28-year-old female who's gotten herself tangled in a situation that's as messy as it gets. My partner, a 30-year-old male, is currently dedicated to transforming his physique. He's on this intense workout regimen with the help of a personal trainer-year-old male. The twist? I've been secretly seeing this trainer behind my partner's back during his very own workout sessions. Yeah, I know it sounds insane, and it is. But this story is far from ordinary, and every moment feels like I'm walking a tightrope with no safety net in sight. It all started when my partner decided to get serious about his fitness goals. He signed up at a local gym and hired a personal trainer to keep him on track. Initially, I was supportive, even encouraged his decision. One day, out of curiosity and a bit of boredom, I tagged along to one of his sessions. That's where I first laid eyes on the trainer. He was charismatic, with an easygoing demeanor that drew people in. I never expected that a casual visit to the gym would set off a chain of events that would change everything. During that initial gym visit, something unexpected happened. The trainer and I exchanged a glance that lingered just a moment too long. It was one of those electrifying moments where the air feels charged. I brushed it off as nothing, but every time I visited the gym after that, the tension grew. We started to share small talk that quickly escalated into flirtatious banter. I found myself looking forward to seeing him, and judging by his body language, the feeling was mutual. His attention was intoxicating and filled a void I hadn't realized was there. The more we interacted, the more it felt like we were playing with fire. The line was crossed one rainy afternoon. My partner had just finished a grueling workout and left for the showers, leaving me alone with the trainer. We were both soaked, laughing at the weather, when he suggested grabbing a coffee at the cafe next door. It was innocent enough, or so I told myself. But sitting across from him, the conversation flowed easily. Laughter came naturally, and suddenly, the world outside seemed to fade. We lingered over our drinks, ignoring the clock. As we stood to leave, there was a pause, a shared moment of decision, and then a kiss. It was brief, almost accidental, but it shattered whatever illusion of innocence I'd been clinging to. After that day, the dynamic between us changed entirely. We started orchestrating our meetups with precision, coinciding with my partner's workout sessions. Sometimes it was a quick rendezvous in the gym's empty studio or a stolen moment in the car park. The thrill of it was addictive, but it also felt like a ticking time bomb. We kept our affair under wraps, careful not to leave a trace. Despite the risk, the trainer and I couldn't seem to stop. The deception became a routine, and I found myself living a double life. Each encounter was a blend of exhilaration and dread, knowing it could all come crashing down at any moment. Despite the excitement, guilt began to gnaw at me. I'd catch myself avoiding my partner's eyes, guilty when he'd thank me for supporting his fitness journey. To justify my actions, I told myself I was neglected, that this affair filled a gap in my life. Yet, no amount of rationalization could completely silence the voice in my head, reminding me of my betrayal. I overcompensated in our relationship, trying to mask my deception with affection. But each lie I told added another layer to the web I'd woven, and untangling it seemed impossible without everything collapsing. The breaking point came unexpectedly. One evening, as I sat waiting in the car, my partner finished his session early. He saw me with the trainer, our laughter too intimate, the distance between us too close. His expression shifted from confusion to suspicion. I felt the ground slipping beneath me, the reality of my actions crashing in. In that moment, I realized the fantasy I'd been living was unsustainable. The confrontation was inevitable, and as I faced the hurt in my partner's eyes, I knew it was time to confront my choices, face the fallout, and decide what truly mattered. Hey Reddit, I'm a 25-year-old woman with a secret that spiraled out of control. I've been in a committed relationship with my 27-year-old partner, but I've made some outrageous choices that have led to a bizarre situation. Let me tell you about how things got so twisted. My partner, a 27-year-old guy, has been struggling at work for a while. Despite working hard, he felt overlooked and frustrated by the lack of recognition. His boss, a 40-year-old man, seemed indifferent to his efforts, and it was taking a toll on our relationship. I wanted to help, but I didn't expect things to unfold the way they did. It all started at a work event my partner insisted I attend. While mingling, I ended up chatting with his boss. To my surprise, the 40-year-old man was charming and engaging, and we hit it off unexpectedly. As the night progressed, the attraction was undeniable, and I found myself drawn to him. One thing led to another, and we ended up having a private conversation that turned into something more. I never anticipated the consequences of that night. Our affair began with discreet meetings and stolen moments. It was thrilling, a secret that I kept locked away, detached from any emotional ties. The physical connection was intense, but I knew it was wrong. Despite the risks, the allure was too strong to resist. I was living a double life, and while I thought I had control, the situation was slipping through my fingers. Soon after our affair started, my partner began receiving unexpected promotions and perks at work. At first, I thought it was a coincidence, but then I realized the connection. His boss was rewarding him unknowingly because of our involvement. My partner was thrilled, attributing his success to hard work, while I silently battled with guilt. The web of lies I had spun was beginning to tighten around me. As time went on, the affair became more complicated. The boss started wanting more from our encounters, and it was getting harder to maintain the secret. I was caught between my partner's happiness and the demands of this twisted relationship. The stress of keeping everything hidden was overwhelming, but I couldn't bring myself to end it. Now, I'm stuck in a dilemma. I know I need to stop the affair, but the fear of the truth coming out is paralyzing. What if my partner finds out and everything falls apart? I'm torn, and I don't know what to do next. So, Reddit, I'm in a tangled web of my own making, and I need advice. How do I untangle this mess without destroying my partner's career and our relationship? Any insights or guidance would be appreciated. I've found myself in a situation that defies logic, and I'm struggling to wrap my head around it. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I've been in a steady relationship with my 29-year-old male partner for several years. Recently, I embarked on a side project that required expertise beyond my reach. Eager to help, my partner introduced me to a 31-year-old male who was perfect for the job. Our first meeting was unremarkable, taking place in a bustling cafe where the hum of conversation set a professional tone. My partner sat across from us, casually orchestrating the introduction. As we discussed the project, I couldn't help but notice the collaborator's sharp intellect and the ease with which he communicated complex ideas. Our exchanges were professional, but there was something about his lingering eye contact and the way his messages arrived promptly in my inbox that hinted at an underlying chemistry. Work meetings soon morphed into something more. It started innocently enough, an extended meeting that transitioned into dinner. We sat across from each other, laughter punctuating our conversation as the restaurant around us faded into the background. A casual touch of his hand on mine was the first line crossed, and I didn't pull away. Late-night conversations that were meant to discuss work now drifted into personal territory, revealing layers of ourselves previously unexplored. Before I knew it, I was entangled in an affair. My phone became a conduit for secretive messages, vibrating with the thrill of deception as I sat beside my unsuspecting partner. I manufactured excuses, feigning late work commitments while slipping away to meet the collaborator. The thrill was intoxicating, yet the double life I was leading weighed heavily on me. I'd return home to my partner, wearing the mask of normalcy, while my mind raced with thoughts of the collaborator. The irony of the situation was that my partner, with all his trust and support, unknowingly facilitated our meetings. He'd suggest I invite the collaborator over for dinner to discuss the project, inadvertently creating opportunities for us to connect. Each of these moments was a twisted reminder of how his good intentions were fueling the fire of my betrayal. Then came the realization, a moment of stark clarity that hit like a lightning bolt. I was sitting across from my partner at our kitchen table, watching him enthusiastically discuss future plans, when the weight of my actions crashed over me. The collaborator had sent a message, and as my partner's voice faded into the background, I knew I had reached a crossroads. The internal conflict was fierce. How could I continue this charade? Yet, ending things meant unraveling the complexity of my relationships with both men. Now, I'm caught in a web of my own making, with no clear path forward. The future is uncertain, and each decision feels like a step into the unknown. I don't know where to turn or how to untangle the mess I've created. As I write this, I can't help but wonder about the morality of my choices and the consequences that await. What would you do if you found yourself in my shoes?
I'm a 31-year-old male, and I recently went on a family vacation with my partner, a 29-year-old female, and our 5-year-old child. We were staying in this cramped hotel room that didn't leave much room for personal space. From the start, the vacation was supposed to be relaxing, but it quickly turned into a tension-filled escapade, especially when I noticed a 28-year-old female at our hotel. The setting was picturesque, a sunny beach resort teeming with tourists. But instead of finding solace in the waves or relaxation in the sun, I found myself increasingly drawn to this woman who caught my eye. My partner and I had been bickering more than usual, mostly due to the stress of travel and lack of privacy. In the midst of this, the allure of someone new seemed like a breath of fresh air. One evening, while my partner was putting our child to bed, I decided to escape to the hotel bar for a drink. That's where I ran into her. Our meeting was accidental. She was seated just a few stools away. We exchanged a few light-hearted jokes about the crowded beach earlier that day. The conversation flowed effortlessly, flirtatious yet innocent enough to dismiss any immediate guilt. We exchanged glances that lingered a bit too long. Her laugh was intoxicating, and I felt this undeniable chemistry building between us. It was unexpected, but undeniable. The next day, while my partner had a spa day planned, I found myself plotting a clandestine meeting with her. We agreed to meet at a secluded spot in the hotel, away from prying eyes. The anticipation was a heady mix of thrill and fear of being discovered. We talked, laughed, and for a moment, everything else seemed to fade into the background. Every touch, every whisper felt charged with electricity, and I couldn't remember the last time I felt so alive. Balancing time with my family and sneaking away for the affair became a delicate dance. I recall one particular evening when I returned to the hotel room later than expected. My partner was already suspicious, asking questions I barely had answers to. The adrenaline rush from almost being caught was intense, but oddly, the excitement overshadowed the guilt. The most reckless encounter happened one night while my partner and child were asleep in the hotel room. The 28-year-old female and I met on the balcony, hidden by the shadows. The air was thick with tension and the thrill of possibly being caught. Our voices were hushed, movements careful. There was an undeniable danger to it, but also a sense of reckless abandon that kept us coming back for more. As the vacation drew to a close, the weight of what I had done began to settle in. The thrill had been exhilarating, but the realization of the potential fallout was sobering. I was torn between the excitement of the affair and the fear of being discovered by my partner. The reality of the situation hit me hard, and I knew it was time to end it before things spiraled further out of control. In the aftermath, I've been grappling with the consequences of my actions. I've kept the affair a secret, but the guilt lingers, intertwined with memories of that intoxicating thrill. It's a twisted mess of emotions, and I can't help but question if the excitement was truly worth the risk. the moral repercussions loom large, a constant reminder of the chaos I willingly stepped into. I'm a 32-year-old male and never thought I'd find myself in such a twisted predicament. It's the kind of situation that you'd expect to see in a soap opera rather than real life. But here I am, caught in a web of deceit and betrayal. My spouse, a 30-year-old female, and her identical twin recently moved to the city. Their likeness is uncanny, often a source of amusement for friends and family. Over the years, the twin has been around, but we were never particularly close until recently. It all started with a chance encounter at a cafe. I bumped into the twin, and to my surprise, they revealed feelings they had been harboring for years. The confession left me speechless, yet I felt an inexplicable pull towards this forbidden allure. The affair began almost innocently. We started meeting covertly, exchanging glances that spoke volumes more than words ever could. The thrill of the taboo was undeniable. The twins' ability to mimic my spouse's habits only made our deception easier. There were close calls that nearly blew our cover. Once, my spouse almost caught us together. We quickly concocted a story, a flimsy web of lies and alibis that barely held up. Each encounter was laced with tension, a cocktail of adrenaline that kept us both on edge. Despite the excitement, the guilt gnawed at me. I found myself justifying my actions, rationalizing that what I was doing wasn't truly harmful. But beneath it all lurked a constant fear of the fallout if our secret was discovered. Recently, the twins started to express growing guilt, casting doubts over our affair. They began pulling away, fearing the impending disaster if we were caught. This hesitation has driven a wedge between us, adding another layer of complexity to this tangled mess. Now I find myself at a crossroads, contemplating the future with uncertainty and fear. The web of lies and deception is tightening, and I can't help but wonder how long we can keep this secret before everything unravels.
I'm a 29-year-old woman, and I've found myself in a situation that feels both surreal and unsettling. My partner, a 32-year-old man, is completely engrossed in his online gaming group. It's his escape, his passion, and frankly, I never really cared for it. I used to just roll my eyes whenever he talked about their in-game conquests. But then, out of sheer boredom one day, I decided to join one of their sessions. I thought it might give us more to talk about. I didn't expect to actually enjoy it, let alone connect with one particular member, a 27-year-old man. He had a way of making the game more engaging, and soon we were chatting outside of the game, sharing memes and videos. Our conversations quickly became the highlight of my day, evolving from casual banter into something more intimate. We started discussing personal things I hadn't even shared with my partner. And then, the line was crossed. We agreed to meet in person under the guise of attending a gaming convention. It was easy to deceive my partner, who was too distracted by his game to notice my sudden interest. Our first meeting was at a coffee shop, a safe public space. We laughed about the absurdity of our situation, both aware but not fully acknowledging the betrayal. These meetings became frequent. We'd meet at obscure cafes, parks, or his apartment when his roommates were out. It was thrilling and terrifying to sneak around like this. Once, while sneaking out of his place, I almost bumped into my partner's friend who lived nearby. That close call had my heart racing for days. Living this double life has been a bizarre balancing act. At home, I'd play the devoted girlfriend, cooking dinner and pretending to be interested in his gaming stories. Meanwhile, I'd be texting the other man under the table, planning our next rendezvous. I'd find myself smiling at the thought of him while my partner droned on about his latest game victory, feeling both guilty and exhilarated. The tension of keeping this secret is overwhelming. Each day, I'm on edge, waiting for the moment it all comes crashing down. But then, something unexpected happened. During one of our secret meetings, the 27-year-old man confessed that he had developed real feelings for me. That confession hit me like a ton of bricks. It made everything feel more real, more serious. Until then, it was just a twisted game, an adrenaline rush. This twist has left me questioning everything. What am I doing? Am I willing to risk my relationship for something that started as a fluke? My partner remains blissfully unaware, completely absorbed in his virtual world, while I wrestle with this chaos. Do I break it off and confess? or continue juggling these two worlds until the inevitable happens. It's a mess of my own making, and I'm not sure how to untangle it. I'm stuck in this web of deceit, wondering if there's any way out without destroying everything. How did I end up here, and where do I go from this tangled, twisted reality? I'm a 30-year-old woman, and I recently found myself in a situation I never thought I'd be in. It all started innocently, or so I told myself. My partner, a 32-year-old man, and I have been together for several years. Our relationship has always been stable, but perhaps that was the problem, too stable. Enter my 31-year-old ex. We hadn't spoken in years, but when I ran into him at a mutual friend's gathering, things took a turn I didn't anticipate. At first, meeting my ex seemed harmless. We exchanged pleasantries and caught up on the years gone by. There was a strange comfort in talking to someone who once knew me so well. That first meeting led to a second, and soon we were meeting regularly. It was supposed to be just coffee, just reminiscing, but it didn't stay that way. The first time we crossed the line, it felt like stepping back into a familiar but forbidden world. I remember how it happened without premeditation. A lingering glance, a brush of hands, and suddenly we were in each other's arms. Each subsequent meeting was shrouded in secrecy. I started telling my partner I was meeting an old friend, which was true but not entirely honest. The thrill was addictive, but so was the weight of guilt. My partner had no reason to suspect anything. He trusted me completely, encouraging me to maintain my friendships and enjoy my social life. In a twisted way, his trust made it easier to continue the affair. I'd come home and he'd ask how my day was, and I'd recount a fabricated version of events, all while he listened, none the wiser. The turning point came unexpectedly. My partner found a receipt for a dinner I hadn't told him about. I had been careless, too wrapped up in my secret life to notice the small details. His curiosity was piqued, and he asked questions. I could feel the panic rising, but I kept my composure, spinning a story about a girl's night out. He seemed to buy it, but I knew I had to be more careful. Now, I find myself living in constant tension. The excitement of the affair is overshadowed by the fear of getting caught. My ex and I have talked about what we're doing, but neither of us has made a move to end it. My partner, oblivious to the chaos beneath the surface, continues to be his trusting, loving self. Every day is a juggling act, trying to keep the two worlds from colliding. I know I can't keep this up forever. The guilt gnaws at me, but so does the thought of losing the thrill of the affair. I'm stuck in a loop of my own making, unsure of how to break free without causing irreparable damage. So here I am sharing this twisted tale in anonymity, wondering if I'll ever muster the courage to end this double life, or if I'm doomed to let it implode spectacularly. It's a mess of my own creation, and yet I hesitate to clean it up. How did things get this far, and is it too late to turn back?